Now we talk so much about how tech costs people their jobs, how tech can surveil us, about how tech can dehumanize us. But I've always seen that other side to it of the ways in which it can somehow and sometimes empower some of the most disenfranchised people. So maybe let me give you a quick example, one of my favorites. Together with Innovate, two of our AI for Impact student fellows sat down with teams of parents of particularly mothers of kids with disabilities, people who get a 100-page PDF from their school district saying your kid is entitled to extra time on a test or this or that accommodation. This is a really complex legal document. And if you do not speak English well, or you're just a busy working person navigating this process, especially without the right lawyers, consultants, psychologists, etc., can be very, very daunting to advocate for your kid. So they sat down together and built a tool using AI, again, designed by those moms, working together with some kids with some AI training, but it was really designed and built for and by those parents saying, this is what we need. We need to better understand what's in this document. We need to know what our rights are. We need you to translate for us into our native language so that we can advocate for our kid, whether or not we can afford a high-priced consultant or lawyer.
What an incredible story, and what a positive and powerful use of AI to support these moms and these students and these children. Buckle up for a new episode of the Be S.H.E podcast, the show where we have real and raw conversations to inspire and empower you to be seen and heard so you can create balance in everything you want in your life and business. I'm your host, Heidi Schock, and I'm excited to walk alongside of you on this journey of being seen, heard, and empowered. Welcome to the Be S.H.E podcast. Be seen, be heard, be empowered. I'm your host, Heidi Schock, co-founder of HLH Growth Solutions, where we help businesses scale through outside-the-box visibility and automation strategies. If you're new to this podcast, welcome. I'm excited to have you here today and for you to meet my special guest. We've been trying to get together, so I'm really glad that this happened. We're going to talk about her book that is out and excited to be here with her, promoting it and learning more about it. So welcome to the podcast, Beth Simone Noveck.
Heidi, thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
I'm excited to chat with you and dive in. Before we do, Beth, I'm just going to give everybody a little background about you, and then we will get to it. Beth Simone Noveck is a professor and director of the Burns Center for Social Change at Northeastern University. She leads the Governance Lab and InnovateUS, the fastest growing AI learning community for public sector professionals. Previously, she served as Chief AI Strategist for the state of New Jersey and has worked in the White House in 10 Downing Street, advising governments around the world on technology and policy. She is the founder of AI for Impact, whose fellows build democratic AI tools with communities. Noveck is the author of several influential books on digital governance, including Solving Public Problems, Smart Citizens, Smarter State, and Wiki Government. So, wow, you have accomplished a lot. I gave everybody a little background about you, but can you tell us how AI especially, because you were involved in AI long before we actually it came on the scene for us civilians about 3 years ago. So what got you into that area?
Well, I actually owe my interest in technology to my mother and to the women in my family. So I'm really glad to be here talking about how all of this relates to women's lives and women's journeys. It was the fact that I grew up in a house where my father had lost his job and my mother supported the family by trading stocks. This is long before the internet and day trading. We had a ticker tape machine in the house that produced this awesome, like reels of tape. And as a little kid, I used to jump around. I loved the piles of tape. But what was more significant, obviously reflecting back on that, was the fact that my mom in the early 70s at that point was able to support the family, run a business while being a mother, a wife, which was a full-time job in that day and age, and really have it all. It allowed her to re-enter the marketplace in many ways, even though she was somebody who felt she had to stay in the background. So it was
Mm.
that inspiration, and she wasn't the only woman in my family who, my grandmother ran a printing company, again, using in those days the most modern manufacturing technologies to do the printing that she did. But other women in the family who have had a trajectory really of using computers in ways that just gave them the flexibility. This is before COVID and the work from home movement to live their lives in different ways. The story for me is a very personal one of how I got into technology that started in those very earliest days. Later, my mother ended up running owning a travel agency, which again used computers, and I worked in the agency. So I always had this interest in kind of tech as a liberating force. Now we talk so much about how tech costs people their jobs, how tech can surveil us, about how tech can dehumanize us. But I've always seen that other side to it of the ways in which it can somehow and sometimes empower some of the most disenfranchised people. So I've always been excited about that other side of the story.
Yeah, wow. So thank you for sharing. It sounds like you were surrounded by powerhouse women, which is fantastic. And what an impressive role model that you had in your mother. I love how she's also showed you not only can women rise up and take care of the family and juggle it all, because we talk a lot about that on this podcast, how these amazing women like yourself are doing all the things, having families, juggling all of the hats and keeping them all in the air. And your mom was one of those women. So, what an incredible person to have in your life and grow up or surrounded by. And so, thank you for sharing that. Many women that are listening didn't have that. So, it's great to hear from you that got to have that inspiration. I'm curious, there's a few things I want to dive into there. And also, she pivoted. She went from doing that into running a travel agency, which it can be scary too. A lot of people get nervous around pivoting, right? It sounds like she just had no problem and just did it.
I'm not sure it was no problem or that it was any of it was so easy, nor do I think she would have thought of herself as some kind of heroic role model. It started of necessity, number one, and
Mm-hmm.
number two, for a woman who was I don't think originally, but who had become very shy, who had receded into the background after getting married, and that was sort of the norm in the 60s and in of what was expected for her. It just gave her a way to reassert all her intelligence and her personality. Again, it started of necessity. The travel thing later was started as like, ooh, it'd be fun to get a discount or two on a trip. And then turned into her starting her own business, and she became so busy and successful that she never had time to go on any of those trips that she got discounts on. We all benefited, but she didn't. But yes, the pivoting, which I think especially so many women do of necessity, again, it may not have been so thought through at the time, so I don't want to give it the impression that there was some perfect vision and she set the trajectory and then execute on. I think everything was a pivot, but it led to really good things. And for me, it was a role model, not only about the importance that tech can play in that kind of empowerment, but also in creating the flexibility that so many of us have come to recognize, especially after COVID, the ability to have more control over your own hours, around where you work. I think whether you're a woman or a man, like a lot of us have come to appreciate that flexibility, and it's opened up new vistas for many people.
Yeah. You mentioned when you were sharing with us about technology, and it can lead to fear about jobs being taken and in what the role of technology is for many, on many people's viewpoint of it. You see it on the other side of it. Can you share more about what that looks like for you? Because many of us are on that other side of the coin and would love to hear your perspective on how it can actually be used to empower.
Yeah, so I don't want to dismiss that there are a lot of very real fears and concerns. Much of what you hear about and how tech is changing the way that we work. That's not, by the way, a new topic. We worried about when we got ATM machines, we worried about losing bank tellers and banks going out of business. In fact, it had exactly the opposite effect. When the internet came along, we worried about whether we would still have bookstores and whether we would still have clothing stores and whether we would still buy things online and offline. And of course, I think we've seen how we lived through that transition, adjusted, and of course, we still have stores that sell clothes, both online and offline. It's not to say, though, that there aren't significant challenges. And we can get into sort of what are the particular risks of these tools and what make them different from older technologies. But I think it is worth saying that it is a double-edged sword. There's two sides to this. Maybe the useful analogy, I don't know if this is too grand an analogy, but nuclear energy, you can use it for running a power plant, you can use it for building a bomb. A
Mm,
lot of the future of these tools have to do with how we as humans choose to use them. So
mm,
AI by itself isn't costing anybody its job. It is a CEO, it is a manager, it is a human choosing to fire a worker that we have to be concerned about, but it is a choice.
mm,
So, by the same token, my argument and my focus is on what are the positive things we can and should be doing with these tools in our lives that can empower us, whether it's we're in a small business, whether we're a teacher, whatever, whether we're in government, whatever it is that we might do. I think there's a lot of exciting examples of how people are using what I would sort of describe as a next generation word processor or next generation calculator to do really exciting things. So maybe let me give you a quick example, one of my favorites. We work a lot with a parent advocacy group out of California called Innovate Public Schools. Together with Innovate, two of our AI for Impact student fellows sat down with teams of parents of particularly mothers of kids with disabilities, people who get 100-page PDF from their school district saying your kid is entitled to extra time on a test or this or that accommodation. This is about 15 to 20% of public kids in public school in America have what's called this IEP. This is a really complex legal document. And if you do not speak English well, or you're just a busy working person navigating this process, especially without the right lawyers, consultants, psychologists, et cetera, can be very, very daunting to advocate for your kid. So they sat down together and built a tool using AI, again, designed by those moms, working together with some kids with some AI training, but it was really designed and built for and by those parents saying, this is what we need. We need to better understand what's in this document. We need to know what our rights are. We need you to translate for us into our native language so that we can advocate for our kid, whether or not we can afford a high-priced consultant or lawyer. It's that kind of use that I'm so excited about, that communities using AI to solve problems that matter to them, those are the things that I think are where we should be making our investments, where we need to be focusing, and what we need to be talking more about.
Yeah, wow, what an incredible story, and what a positive and powerful use of AI to support these moms and these students and these children. My son has an IEP where he would get extra time. So I'm one of those people that falls into that category. I'm so grateful that this was brought together and created because I know how daunting it can be and overwhelming it can also be for both the students and the parents. Yeah.
Great. We'd love to, by the way, come back and talk just about that project because it's free, it's open, and we'd love to get it into more people's hands. We're rolling out next pilots in LA and San Francisco of that tooling. But the idea, again, that you shouldn't have to pay for that. Again, the whole point is to give people who can't afford the lawyer, the consultant, all the things you might need to argue for the school district that you should have gotten this service, to put people on a level playing field. Those are the kinds of things where if you're going to put a data center in my backyard and start using water and energy and power, we should be talking about what we're using AI for. So that's why I wrote the book Reboot, to really try to make this case of saying, like, let's talk about what we should be doing, not just constantly kind of chicken little it and say the sky is falling, here's all the things we shouldn't be doing, the future is terrible. I think we all need desperately a dose of optimism and empowerment of things we should and could be doing. The great thing about AI is you do not need a computer science degree. You do not need to know any special coding languages. You don't need any degree or any technical background to use these tools because they're all driven by plain language. And so that's why I think they're particularly an exciting tool for empowerment of people who, even people who may have been excluded from the digital revolution before.
Yeah, let's dive into your book because I wanted to bring that up next. So you gave us a perfect roll into that. So your new book is called Reboot: AI and the Race to Save Democracy. Can you share why you wrote it, which I think you gave us a little background on that, and also what can we expect from reading it and when's it, is it out? Is it coming out? All the goodness, juiciness of the book.
So you got some of the personal background as to why I wrote it, but let me give you sort of the broader, if you will, intellectual background, which really has to do with these questions of the safety, security, and survival of our democracy. You'd have to live under a rock now to not feel like things are not going as well as they need to. We are seeing rising levels of political violence in this country. We are seeing political culture in what used to be you were a Democrat, you were a Republican, but you didn't view the other side as somehow the enemy. And now we are seeing that vilification of the other side. Most Americans, according to surveys, will tell you they would rather marry somebody of another religion than somebody of another political party. We're having trouble getting along with our own neighbors. We're moving into neighborhoods where, again, getting away from people who don't share our political beliefs. We're seeing that kind of fracturing of our society in many cases, or at least even if we don't see it in our own neighborhoods or backyard, it's what we're reading in the headlines. So that question of the survival of our democracy, of the survival of our system of government in which we play a role in choosing our representatives, but also in hopefully having a voice in the decisions that they make. I think we all feel that's not working as well as it needs to, whether it's because most people will tell you they don't feel they have any voice in how, forget about Washington, like what happens in your own town council. Most people don't feel those decisions reflect their views or that they have any ability to control those decisions except voting once a year, once every 2 years, or once every 4 years. And that's not good enough. But beyond that, I think most of us feel like we're not, especially our public institutions, are not solving problems as fast as they need to. The world is way more complicated. It's a given. But whether it's climate change or it's poverty or it's the rising cost of healthcare, decreasing life expectancy in this country, widening economic inequality, I could spend the whole hour just going through a long list of problems. The cost of eggs, the cost of gas, fill in the blank. We are not doing as good a job as we need to at solving all of these problems. So, okay, let me stop depressing everybody totally. That is the origin of why I wrote this book. It was to start to ask the question, what can we do about any of this? Most of the solutions you hear talked about on TV, in the news, etc., are these very abstract policy solutions, things that will take forever to accomplish in many cases. You know, people talk about we need to get rid of the Electoral College, we need to enlarge the size of the Senate. Those are all intellectually interesting ideas, but they're not going to happen anytime soon. You are not going to have a constitutional amendment tomorrow or the day after. So I am really interested in the power of technology to allow us to make change right now. I am excited about the fact that we built that tool for translating and summarizing IEPs. That was a 6-month project. So that was the origin of the book, which is out June 23rd, which happens to be the day we're recording this today. It is on, you can read it. It's also on audio if you, like me, are very lazy and you would rather listen. There is a guy with a very nice, slightly British accent who will read it to you. So you can read it or you can fall asleep to it, as the case may be. But it was really meant to give us some hope and to start to inspire some ideas about how these tools may help us to do things differently.
Mm. Incredible. Well, thank you for writing it. Thank you for putting it on Audible because I'm an Audible fan. I save up
Junkie,
all
junkie.
my yes,
Yeah.
I have my my what do they call them? Tokens that I can save up and I can use them. So I'll be downloading yours. That's how I usually read my books. I try to read them and then I end up not getting through the whole book if I'm reading it. But when I'm listening to it on Audible, I will listen to the whole thing because I'll listen to it as I'm working or as I'm cleaning or as I'm driving.
I
We're
am
bringing
looking
out
to
books.
see if it's on Audible today or needs to be. Oh,
It's
yeah, here it is.
it is
Okay, it is
awesome.
now available as of today. Okay, I'm going to be the first to buy
I'll be
it.
the second. So as soon
Okay,
as we
sounds
wrap up
good.
here, I'll download it. And for those of you listening, go grab it, go buy it, and also, or go get the download the Audible, whichever you prefer. Some people prefer reading and taking notes and writing in the book, and some people prefer listening, or some people prefer both. It frustrates me when I want to get a book and I'm like, oh, if you had it in Audible, I'd get it right now. So thank you for making it super simple for us.
Yes.
And thank you for
Thank you.
making,
Thank you, nice man with British accent. That's
yes, and thank you for making a sexy voice. for us that like accents. I appreciate that you made it simple and also that you wrote about technology and you really bring it into a simplified terminology because AI can be daunting for many. I am an entrepreneur, so I do a lot in my business with AI, but I also realize that people that aren't in business don't necessarily understand it fully and it can seem daunting and overcomplicated. And I love that you created this project with moms for children with IEPs. I think it's well needed. And I love how you're wanting to bring together a community and simplify things for them and help these children and these parents in the process. So you're using it for exactly what you shared at the beginning. It's all about how humans are using the technology. If we're using it for good, then it's a really good tool. But anything could be used for good or bad. It just depends on what the human behind it is doing with it. So I would just want to say thank you and for writing this book and bringing and especially talking to it about in the terms of democracy because we are seeing a lot of things on the political arena. And I don't want to get into politics, but we are seeing a lot of discourse out there. We see it on social media. I see it on social media every time I open it. I just want people to come back to being humans at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And let's put those things aside and know you said some things are not going to change overnight. Let's focus on what we can. And coming together as people is what we can do right away. Let us know that our differences make us unique and what makes that conversation be able to happen. And let's have the conversations. So we can get your book. So it comes out today, which is amazing. So we're going to push this episode up to drop faster so we can get this promoted. We've come to kind of like try to get together for interviews before. So I feel like this has been serendipitous that we're here today talking when your book drops. So I'm really excited to be having this conversation with you today. I want to talk to you about you personally, if that's okay, because your bio is very impressive. And it can be intimidating for maybe some women hearing it going, oh my gosh, she's accomplished so much. And she's wrote this book and she's been in
That
technology.
just means I'm old, Heidi.
No, well, I think we're the same age. And I hope I'm not old. I kind of feel like I am sometimes,
I'm
but I hope I'm
joking.
not
I'm
so.
joking.
No, I know. So I'm curious, you were in technology long before technology was probably cool, or a lot of women were excited about technology. What were some of the things that you went through as far as did you have any fear moving into this space? And if you did, what did you have any imposter syndrome being a female in this space where I'm sure was probably male dominated? I'm guessing was more male dominated when you entered it. What did that look like? Did you have any fear or feelings of imposter syndrome? And how did you move through that?
Such a great question. And yes, of course, the tech field in particular is very, very heavily male dominated. And you just have to look around at the news at who the major tech leaders are, whom you read about and hear about in the tech world. Most people have heard of Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg, Satya Nadella, Sergey Brin, all of the CEOs of these different tech companies. They are generally men and not women. So it tends to be a very male-dominated field, number one. Number two, my focus in the tech space has always been on what you might think of as these softer subjects, as in how do we use tech, not to dominate and beat up other people and fire workers, but how do we use tech to empower us and to get along and to build community and to solve problems? So what some people would call or paint as a kind of feminine or female agenda. And I say that that's unfortunate as the parent of a son. I think it's very unfortunate that we think about things like fixing problems. Move fast and break things is the typical tech mantra. Move fast and fix things shouldn't somehow be a feminine or female. We want collaboration, community, solving problems to be something that everybody's engaged in. So how do I move through these feelings of kind of imposter syndrome or I don't deserve this or I'm not good enough or however you want to describe it that I think so many people feel no matter what we do. And I think those feelings, especially for young people, have only gotten worse because you have this mirror of social media that shows you somebody who is thinner, richer, faster, this, that, has more followers, more this, more that. We get that sort of distorted mirror back at us, which I think is difficult for a lot of young people, especially. How do you move through it? I think the answer, and this is very easy to say, is really to try to focus on just what brings you joy, what you
Mm.
love doing. The reason I wrote the book is not only because it's a set of ideas that I care about, but I really enjoy having something in my life that requires me to turn everything off, to focus, to take the time it takes to write something. It takes a lot of time. But because it brings me a lot of joy and it's a good anecdote to the rest of my life, which is like email meeting, email meeting, email meeting, is a good thing. So I'm not worried about whether it's the best, whether it's the most famous, whether a million people will download this. I just wanted to have something in my life that I wanted to do for me. And that helps you sort of find and center yourself around something authentic, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
I don't know.
S- I love that.
Easier said than done.
Yeah.
But picking one project, not 10 projects, but one project and doing that thing for you because you want to do it.
Mm. So really understand what I'm hearing is getting clear on what brings you joy and passion, right? And then leaning into that and staying with that one thing into completion so that you can that's done. Because for me, I know there's a lot of different shiny objects that can happen and we can move from one thing to the next and then nothing gets completed, right?
Yeah, that is a hard part. Now, first of all, we don't always know what that thing is, so it sometimes requires us to try different things.
Mhm.
So it may not be as big a thing as a book. In other words, maybe it starts with, I just want to write a blog post or I want to write an article for my local paper because I want to see, do I like writing things? I feel like I have a lot to say. Some people say, oh, I have a lot to say. But am I the type of person who wants to write them down as opposed to just chat about them? So trying with writing a blog post or an article, or I'm sure with this podcast, you started with one episode and then it's one foot in front of the other before deciding, ooh, I'd actually like to do something longer and more. And this is something I want to set my mind to. And then, yes, finishing it, which is why it's really good to pick something small that you know you can finish because the satisfaction of finishing is such a great thing.
It is. And I love that you said start something small. So if you're listening to this and you're like, oh my gosh, I have so many big ideas, what is something small that you can complete, even if it's just today, right? It could just be cleaning your kitchen, as easy as that. That could be something that's been on your plate for a while. And I say that, I know that's not like writing a book, but it's something that you can complete, get that feeling that Beth's talking about that completion feeling, and then moving on and go, oh, I really like that. What can I do next? And then you can start spreading out the timelines of what it takes to complete that project or that
Yeah,
item. Um,
I think that's 100% right. And I will tell you that as my mother aged, coming back to talking about her, one of the things as she got older, she lost that ability to complete things. It happens to
mm,
people sometimes as they age. You set the intention to do something, and even something as simple as paying a bill or opening the mail or cleaning the kitchen, and it becomes increasingly difficult to finish things. That loss of agency was really, really hard. That kind of cognitive decline happens to a lot of people. So I think it is something where, as before that happens to us, while we still can, picking something, which could be paying a bill. I find cleaning the kitchen more. I'd rather write a book than clean my kitchen, frankly. It just never ends. The kitchen one never ends. But I think exercising your sense of agency, proving to yourself that you can finish something,
mhm.
again, by setting a small goal is a very powerful feeling. Because if you start with something small, like cleaning your kitchen, tomorrow it may be doing that podcast or writing that blog post or sketching out that first draft of the painting you always wanted to make. I think these things grow in the way that some people start with buying a plant, then they get a
Mm.
pet, then they have a kid.
Right.
There's sort of there's a kind of a progression here. I think I wouldn't start with cleaning the kitchen though. That probably
No,
is
maybe not. Maybe if you like,
that's not my
I
recommendation.
love that. I love that you said paying bills because I know that people can feel overwhelmed about that. And just paying one out of the stack, paying one, getting that off your plate can feel really joyful and in completion. And I love it that you brought up getting a plant and then a pet and then like, thank God I didn't want to do that. For me, I don't keep plants alive very well. But my kids, I tell my kids all the time, I'm like, that was a big goal to keep you guys alive. That, my
And you
number
get your
one
kids
goal
to water the
every
plants,
day
then you're
because I can't
that's the
keep a
trick.
plant alive.
The point is to start with something that is, and there is no right thing or
Yeah.
good thing. It has to be this thing. It's picking something that you can and will do is the most important thing. And that's where I think coming back to the book and the sort of the topic here is that tech can be very enabling. So,
Yeah.
for example, one of the great things about these new generative AI tools that you have used or you've heard about, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Copilot, for which there are free versions. So, again, you can use them now without a subscription, is they can help you with doing things like writing. So, for example, if you are putting off that letter you need to write about your kid's IEP to your school district, or that letter you need to write to whomever that about that difficult relationship in your life or your family. These tools can help you in ways that can act as a sort of, is the way a good assistant could. And who among us has the money for or time or can find an assistant? So the idea of saying like, oh, there's that letter I always wanted to write, this could help me. Or I have some ideas I want to get down, but I'm a little afraid. Oh, I could just like start dictating them and let AI help me to refine my thinking, help to correct my spelling, turn it into full sentences. These tools can be very empowering for a lot of these projects we want to do in our lives.
Mm. So, Beth, as we mentioned before, you're a professor, you're director of the Burns Center for Social Change at Northeastern University. You lead the fastest growing AI learning community for public sector professionals. You have a book. You're a mom. How do you juggle your keeping that balance, if it's possible, as a woman, as a mom, as a leader, as a professor, as an author, all the things that you're doing? We talked about a little bit about this with your mom, keeping all those hats in the air. How do you do it?
Poorly, most times, number one, and owning up to that, that it is okay to not be as good at it as you would like, number one. Number two, the relentless and ruthless keeping of lists. The advice that somebody once gave me a long time ago that if you don't write it down, it will circulate in your head. It will take up your brain space. It will keep you from sleeping. So just writing things down, even the smallest, littlest things, so that you can then first have the joy of crossing them off, but second, be able to just keep track of the many different things you want to do. Trying to prioritize among things, and we all have those to-do lists. We all make them all the time, and it becomes very easy. As someone once said to me, email is someone else's to-do list. It becomes a thing that lands in your inbox, whether it's an email or somebody asking you to do something, it always rises to the top. Is that re-examining of that list on a regular basis to say, what should be on the top of this list? What am I spending my time on? And that's where let me come back to some of the themes of the book, which is not just about kind of productivity and empowerment, is very specifically about civic empowerment, about how we are using these tools to take action in our own communities, to organize our neighbors to clean up the park, or to do something in our schools, or organize a reading challenge for our kids, or whatever the project might be. So I think I would just say I think it's really important to have something of public purpose at the top of our list, or at least somewhere on our list. So in between cleaning up the kitchen and paying the bills and getting our hair done and cooking dinner and all these other things we should do, I think it's really important to have something on our list that is not about ourselves and
Hmm.
not just about our immediate family, but that is about the other, that is about community, that is about improving someone else's life. I think it is through public service, and by which I don't mean working for the government, although that is a great thing to do if you have the opportunity. I mean, you could call it mission-driven work, you could call it charity work, you could call it, again, doesn't matter whether it's through government or business or a volunteer, like how you get it done. But I think having something outside of ourselves, some kind of volunteering activity, some sort of community activity, again, is so, so, so important for our personal well-being, but also, of course, for our planetary well-being.
Incredible. Great advice. Thank you. So, can you share with us how people can connect with you? Where can they find you? And also, again, tell us about the book and where we can go get it because it came out today.
It came out today. So, Reboot AI and the Race to Save Democracy, available anywhere you buy a book. maybe on Amazon, hopefully from your local bookstore instead. Online, rebootdemocracy.ai. You can find me, you can find the book, audio on Audible or your other audio bookstore, etc. But basically, if you can spell my last name, you can reach me. So it is, which people will be able to see in the podcast notes here. It's an unusual name and how it's spelled, which comes from my father not speaking, his not having parents who spoke very good English. And so in kindergarten, he misspelled it when the teacher asked him. And so I'm stuck with it. But basically, if you can spell it, you will find me on all manner of email platforms or through Northeastern, etc. But I'd be excited if people read the book, but also through the book, you can get access to all of the free courses that we offer. So we have a platform that you can find it at Reboot AI, you can find it at InnovateUS.org, and we have free courses about AI and how to use it for public purpose. We have free courses on how to use AI for community engagement, how to use it for solving problems in the world. We have all kinds of programming, both courses you can take at your own pace, and then workshops that we do 3 or 4 every week, all of which are free and always will remain free. They are there to promote doing good in the world using the tools that we have available to us. So I invite people to check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. These tools are available, so use them. Use them to support yourself, use them to bring good into the world, to your community, to the people that you love around you. And Beth's last name is spelled Noveck, so Noveck. So you can find her. We also have all of Beth's information, the show notes, all of her links and where you can get the book and all the good stuff and her website. So if you're watching us on YouTube, Beth and I say hello and thank you. We're grateful you're here. If you know of anybody that would benefit from this conversation, which personally I feel everybody benefits from this conversation. Technology is evolving quickly. AI is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. So this conversation is a must for everybody to hear. Would love if you would share Beth and this conversation out to more people so they can learn about her and the book. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, thank you. I appreciate you. And we say hello. If you are able to leave a review, we would love it, preferably 5 stars. The reason being that allows the platform to see that this episode and Beth is getting a lot of interest, and it will push this episode and Beth and her book out to more people. And that is the goal for us here at the Be S.H.E podcast, is to share the book, and for people to get more information on AI and technology and where it's going and how it's evolving, and the good that she's doing in the world. And Beth, I have a couple questions for you, if you don't mind. These are just fun questions. Is there a fun fact, something behind the scenes about Beth Simone Noveck that we wouldn't know by going to your website, reading your book, or seeing you on social, or going to Northeastern University?
Oh my goodness. With all these things, the one thing I don't have time for anymore is hobbies, unless you count watering these orchids that are behind me. I will give you a random fun fact that you would not know is that my first foray into business or into doing anything professional, and maybe this is the origin of it all, was that mother that I told you about before. One of her many side hustles, um, was gardening. So she used to indenture us as small children to picking 300 pounds of tomatoes a day, and I was in charge of retail operations. That is to say, they stuck me in the front yard as a 4-year-old to sell those 300 pounds of tomatoes. My sister was sold at the flea markets and to restaurants, and I was the cute face of retail in those days. So that is how I got my start
I was
in entrepreneurship, if you will. And that is a really random factoid for no particular reason. I'll someday I'll figure out the deep psychological connection between being tortured into pulling weeds and selling tomatoes and now working on the survival of democracy with AI.
Oh, when you figure that out, when that light bulb turns on, let us know. We'll bring you back to talk about that. And I love that because thank you for sharing that. It is a huge fun fact. Your mom was super smart. We already knew that, but she also knew that people couldn't resist you. The adorable 4-year-old at the front selling tomatoes, they're not going to say no to you. So she was a smart woman there.
It was
Okay,
the tomatoes they came for.
my last question for you is, if you could have lunch with anybody, alive or deceased, who would it be and why?
I'm going to answer today a totally different way than I would have answered yesterday, only because last night I watched a fabulous documentary about Teddy Roosevelt and our 26th president. And it was such an engaging, not just documentary and film, but the reason I mention is that Roosevelt was somebody who, despite the privilege in which he grew up, and he did, he deeply believed in public service. He deeply believed in using his privilege to give back to others. He was a true reformer, whether it was trying to clean up corruption in New York or whether it was trying to reform our civil service so that when you got a job in government, it was because of your merit, not because of how much money you paid to somebody. So he was also a champion of the environment and of nature and of conservation. Obviously, he was human and a political leader. He had his flaws, but somebody who genuinely believed in the value of service and of giving back to others and really using the tools and the privilege we have at our disposal to make other people's lives better. I think I'd like to have lunch with him to really talk about how he did it, how he continued to do it even when it was hard and he faced political opposition, personal opposition, tremendous, again, challenges in what he did. And he started, by the way, as a very sickly, asthma riddled child who then suffered great loss in his personal life. But he never let it stop him from saying, how can I look past myself to ask what I can do for others? And I think it's a question we all need to ask ourselves, especially when it gets hard for us personally, the opportunity to look outside yourself and say, is always somebody worse off, and what can I do for them? Because we all have something to give.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's beautiful. And what a fantastic answer. And I think, and I now I'm inspired and intrigued, and I want to watch the documentary myself. So I'll be looking for that. Thank you for sharing that. For those of you listening, make sure that you go connect with Beth. She's pretty cool. She's a pretty cool lady.
Thank you.
And you definitely want to get to know her, connect with her, and also go get the book. The book is called Reboot AI and the Race to Save Democracy. You can get it everywhere books are found. You can download it on Audible. You can go to Amazon, but she also said you can get it in your local bookstore, preferably there, which I love that you said that. So go to your local bookstore. Go check it out. Go give them your service them. Go give them your business and go get the book and reach out to Beth and let her know what you thought. Let her know that you got it and that you heard her here. Beth, thank you so much for being here. I'm so honored to be here on the day that you're dropping, that the book is launched, and we will be doing everything we can to help you promote. So have an amazing day. For those of you listening to us, thank you for being here. Thank you, Beth, for being here with me on the Be S.H.E podcast. I look forward to seeing you all on the next episode of the Be S.H.E podcast. In the meantime, be empowered to be seen and heard.